Welcome to Conversations with Tom Shorkey. Conversations explores the past, the present, and the future of the communities in which we live through the eyes of interesting individuals. Now let's join our host, Tom Shorkey.
Welcome to Conversations. I'm your host for today's program, Tom Shorkey. And we have a very special guest with us for today's program. In this day and age of the big box stores and coffee on every corner at McDonald's, Tim Hortons, Burger King, you name it, what we have in little downtown St. Clair is a cute little coffee shop that has been there now for 11 years, which is hard to believe. It just seems like yesterday they hung the sign up. But our guest today is the owner of Sue's Coffee House in downtown St. Clair, Sue Hool. Welcome to the show, Sue.
Thank you.
Now, you've actually, before we get into roasting coffee beans, all right, and what you do and how you do it different, for our audience at home, you grew up in the Blue Water area, and which one of those high schools did you attend?
Marysville High School.
Marysville High School. We do let a few Vikings into town once in a while. But you didn't graduate from Marysville High School and say, I think I'll open a coffee shop. You had a whole lot of life between when you left high school and when you and your husband decided to go into the coffee business. After high school, what did you really think you were going to do for a living?
Well, I went to SC4 and got my associates in business, and I was planning to do medical transcription. I wanted to be a nurse, but I didn't think I could handle the emotional part of that. So I did the transcription instead, and it was a pretty good paying job at the time. And then I worked at a hospital doing that, and then I actually, just the week before I got married, I interviewed at the ISD, which is now RISA, and I worked there for 3 years, and then left to have my first child. And then when I went back, they offered me a job in the skill center front office. And then after I had my second child, which was like 2.5 years later, I decided to work and do transcription from home so I could raise my kids.
For our listeners at home, what does a medical transcriptionist do? What is that really? What's that mean?
Well, it's a lot different now because they do a lot of editing because of the voice activation. But we listen to the doctors actually dictate their surgical reports, their history and physicals, the discharge summary, and we would sit there and type that all up. So you really had to be a good speller. That was a major part of that role.
So you were doing medical transcription work. Your husband's an engineer in automotive field or whatever. But along the way, you were starting to think, do I want to be transcribing medical reports for the rest of my life? So how did a coffee shop show up on the horizon?
Well, after all my kids were in school, I worked at River District Hospital doing it. And it got very, I'm not sure what the word is, but we had to have a certain line count every day, and it got very boring. We couldn't hardly get out of our seat, and I just decided I'm really kind of a people person, and I wanted to do something more fun. So one day I was driving home from work, and I saw a place for rent, and I called on it, and my husband said, wow, you're really serious. And that's what started it all.
Now, your husband had a couple of hobbies. You kind of explained to me that if he read something that sounded kind of interesting, he gave it a whirl. And for example, maybe homemade beer, homemade wine, roasting coffee beans.
Right.
All right. The first time your husband said to you, I'm going to try this roasting coffee bean thing, what's that all about? How do you do that?
Well, you actually have to buy a coffee roaster, and they're quite technical now. They even come with a laptop. So I really don't know how to do it. That's not one of the things I learned how to do.
Even though at Sue's Coffee House you delegate the roasting. Do you roast your own coffee beans? Is that part of what makes your place different?
Yes, I think so. And that people can actually buy the beans too. A lot of people don't know that, but you can buy them by the pound.
Oh,
And
really?
we'll grind them for you if you don't have a grinder.
Well, that's interesting. So you ended up, as you were scouting around for places for Sue's Coffee Shop, and you ended up St. Clair Mall, but kind of on the riverside, right across from the park. And for people who have never been in Sue's Coffee Shop, when they drive through town, they go, why are all those people sitting on that porch and either drinking coffee or smoking cigars? That's Sue's Coffee House. What do you have? What do you offer?
Well, we have the fresh roasted beans. We have everything's made in-house. We make our own donuts daily, soups, sandwiches. We even make the ciabatta bread that our sandwiches are on. The cigars, the beer and wine. We have a nice little area in the back, that looks kind of like a little part of Tuscany with stone wall and everything. And when people drive by, I think they look at it, it looks small, but it goes the whole full length of the, it's long
Back
and
to the
narrow.
inside of the mall.
So I think once they come in, they're like, whoa, I didn't know this was all here.
Now, Sue, you're actually renowned in town for some of those sandwiches and especially like the fresh donuts and things. How many people does it take to run Sue's Coffee House?
Well, we have about anywhere from 10 to 14 employees usually. I have one gal that works 4 days a week, and she makes the donuts the day she works, and then I have a separate donut maker that makes them the days she's off. And we do burgers, which a lot of people don't know we do burgers, so we have a separate burger person too. So there's pretty much a day shift, and then the kids after school will work right after school, and then there's an evening few hours, so because we're open 7 days a week. And
You're 7 days a week, so do you have like specific crowds that come in? Like you have the morning group, or people pop in at lunchtime, or at the end of the day, early evening? I see people in there with their laptops and things. Is there a particular part of the day that's a little more hectic than others?
Well, we have a few different Bible studies that meet on different days in the mornings. And some people actually work in there on their laptop, people that work from home, or they can work from home 1 day a week. Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays is when we do our burgers. And Thursday night's usually the most popular of the 3 nights. So that's usually a very busy time from 5 to 9.
So you are the owner of a business that is open 7 days a week. Does that mean you typically pop in there every day?
I basically do, unless I schedule a couple days off. My oldest daughter lives in Grand Rapids with 3 grandbabies, so I have to get over there to see them. And my son and his wife just recently had a new baby, so I do schedule a couple days off, a couple of times, at least once a month, and make that trip. We have taken a few vacations, but like I said, my husband likes to hunt and fish and golf, and so we sometimes just do separate
So
things.
your vacation, you visit the grandchildren. His vacation, he goes out to South Dakota and hunts something or whatever. What about, you were just getting into this now, new business, and you're just getting started, and somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, oh, by the way, 2 blocks away, Tim Hortons going to build their Tim Hortons coffee shop. What kind of thoughts went through your mind at that time?
Well, I definitely didn't care for that idea, but like I said, they're totally different than us. Everything's made homemade, fresh in our place. The drive-through is an issue, especially in the winter. I'm sure a lot of people would drive through there rather than stop and have to get out their car at our place. But I just think it's a whole different atmosphere. They come into our place, like I said, some come in to do book groups too. And just, conversation, and like over Thanksgiving, we had people from out of town that have come back home for Thanksgiving, and they came in to, Saturday we were super busy at lunchtime. So it's a unique place.
Well, and I think one of the things you mentioned to me, you are also a destination often for people who are doing the online dating where you have to meet somebody and why do they pick Sue's Coffee House?
It's a safe place. They can come in, just have coffee. They don't know where they live. They don't know if it doesn't work out, then they just say goodbye. But We've actually had a few couples get married that have done that, yeah.
That had met there. Well, it is. I think your shop is very interesting, and it is unique. And even now, as after you fought off Tim Horton on the south end of town, and part of the St. Clair Inn project in a couple of years is supposedly a Starbucks, but you probably just say bring them on because that's not what we do. Is that
right?
Pretty accurate?
I think the St. Clair is going to be a wonderful thing for the town. I think it's going to just, he wants to make it a wedding destination, and like I said, again, Starbucks, we're not Starbucks, and Starbucks isn't us. You know, we offer a whole unique, different experience.
Why is Sue's roasted coffee beans better than Starbucks?
Well, I think ours are a milder blend, and they're just.
Where do you buy your coffee beans?
And we get them in big burlap bags, you know, online. He orders them. I'm not sure exactly.
But I mean, different countries. I mean,
it's a blend of 3 different beans usually. Yeah. But
describe a typical Sue Coffee House customer for me.
well, we have like a fella that'll come in every morning to read his paper and get a cup of coffee. Actually, there were 2 that did that. And they just like to be left alone while they're reading their paper, and the view is phenomenal out that front window. That's one of our biggest assets, really. And that window wasn't there. We put a bigger window in. There was a smaller window with small panes, and then there's the kids. A lot of the kids, you know, that graduated with my oldest daughter, said, "Why didn't you do this when we were in high school?" And I said, "Well, I couldn't. You know, I was still raising kids." And so, and then we have, you know. Even the little kids that have, I've got an employee now, she's 16, and I think she was 7 when she started coming in.
Really?
And people are like, that's her, you know, like they can't believe that she's that old, and she grew up there.
What advice would you have if somebody came to you and said, "So I'm going to start my own business, just like you did"? What kind of advice would you have for somebody that wants to bite off their own business?
I think I'd tell them that they gotta realize that they're gonna give up a lot of their personal life and a lot of time. Sometimes it's very overwhelming. And like I mentioned, being the boss, that's a tough one. You have to learn how to, you know, discipline people. And I remember the first time I had to fire somebody, I thought I was going to die, you know. But it's a very big learning experience. You have to have either a lot of knowledge, you have to do a lot of reading, or know somebody that knows about the business, because you don't want to just go in with not knowing anything.
What do you like? What's the best thing about, you know, if somebody said to you, "Sue, what do you like best about having your little coffee house down there?"
Well, like I said, I think it's the, you know, meeting all the people I've met over the years. A lot of the regulars are now our friends. We have a good group of people. A lot of people are helpers there that are just friends. It's just been a very good learning experience, and St. Clair's a neat little place.
Give us a 30-second commercial on why, if somebody, they love coming in the summer, they'll come for the fireworks, the art fair, the boats, whatever, but if somebody said, "Well, we're thinking about moving our family to a small town," give us a commercial why they should consider St. Clair.
Well, we've got, you know, there's several unique businesses and shops and restaurants. The river view is amazing. In fact, some people just moved into St. Clair. They looked at 35 houses, and they only looked at 2 in St. Clair, and they just love the idea of being able to walk downtown from their house, and they've got little kids, and they just really thought it was a beautiful place to raise a family.
I think that is. Who are some of the people who have been influential with you and your wife as you traversed your...
Well, one of my bosses I had back in the day, I remember I made a mistake, and he made a big deal out over it. And I was really upset at the time, but then I realized that he really taught me a lesson, that I really learned from that, and that maybe that had to happen the way it did. And my mom's been very influential in my life, just always supported me and been there for me. And my husband's taught me a lot too, with, like I said, the ability to just read things and try to do things and get out of your comfort
fix
zone.
Things when they leak or whatever.
Right.
What you've been at it for 11 years now, and knowing what you know now, would you do anything different when you started as to how Sue's Coffee House has unfolded? Would you change anything?
I don't know that I would change anything. I think I should have been more, I should have read more about, I guess, how to be a boss, because like I said, I wasn't really boss material, but I've learned how to be, so that might be the one big thing.
If somebody walked in and you're back there working and they said, we're only here for this one day, which menu item should we order? What would you tell them?
Well, definitely try our coffee, because it's the best. And then if you like donuts, people love our donuts. And then probably the sandwich, there's probably 3 or 4 that are very popular. The Josh, the turkey artichoke and Swiss, and the Italian probably. In fact, the other unique thing about our sandwiches are some of them are named after employees, and they actually came up with the idea for the sandwich.
Oh, really?
So.
How about, is there ever entertainment? Do you ever have music or anything in there?
We used to. We don't so much anymore.
Yeah.
I just tried to do a sign party, which is kind of like a Tupperware party, but not. You actually make a sign, and there's a fee for the sign, and then I was going to add on to it, and they would get a drink and some food with it. But that didn't seem to pan out. We've done different things like that before, but I think it's the time of year.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get people to sign up for it, but.
Well, and I think maybe what seems to have worked is the low-key, traditional, comfortable, come in, take your time, drink your coffee,
Right.
talk with friends, meet someone new, or have a Bible study, and it's all available at Sue's Coffee House.
Right.
10 years from now, Sue, you still going to have the coffee house?
Oh, I don't think so.
What's your next challenge you're looking at?
I want to spend more time being grandma, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a fair thing. Well, for our audience at home, if you have not had the chance to pop into Sue's Coffee House, located right across from the park, downtown St. Clair, big sign on it, you should do it. And after talking to Sue, you know they're open early. Those are fresh, homemade donuts. Sandwiches are incredible. Come in a little later in the day, whether it's coffee or if you want to sample the wine and or smoke a cigar. It's the place to do it. On behalf of Conversations, I'd like to thank Sue Hool for being our guest on Conversations today. Thanks, Sue.
Thank you.
You've been watching Conversations with Tom Shorkey. Conversations explores the past, the present, and the future of the communities in which we live through the eyes of interesting individuals. If you have an idea for a future conversation, please contact us at www.watchctv.org. Thanks for watching Conversations with Tom Shorkey.